Today I want to consider with you two neighbors of the chosen people who were very important to biblical history in the 10th century, 9th century, from then on. The first is Egypt. I've said a lot about Egypt in this class, haven't I? A lot about Egypt. When we began the class 14 classes ago, which is quite a while back, we were in the 21st dynasty of Egypt, and then we've shifted the last couple of classes to the 22nd dynasty. We've reflected several times on the importance of Egypt in the geopolitics of the Levant. Now, I use expressions like Levant pretty much the way, I'm sure I say Levant more often than I say toaster, for example. The Levant is the place where the sun rises. Okay. That is to say, the eastern coast of the Mediterranean. That's all it means. The eastern coast of the Mediterranean. That's the Levant. Okay. We saw that Israel's adoption of monarchy under Saul, David, and Solomon represented an effort to deal with the political vacuum created in the region by the weakness of Egypt's 21st dynasty. And that coincided with the beginning of the Iron Age, toward the end of the 11th century BC, toward the end of the Iron Age. And all sorts of other technical things that happened by the use of, particularly stress the use of lime, for example, for the coating of wells and cisterns. That was at least, for agriculture, that was at least as important as iron for tools. We also considered that the first pharaoh of the 22nd dynasty, Shishak, had a hand in the rebellion of the northern tribes in 922. And I think that's pretty much where we left off last class. Once Israel's two kingdoms were divided, and when were they divided? Well, I said 2 classes ago, because when somebody asked me the last class, how did we get two kingdoms? I said, we got it last class. Okay. So 4 weeks ago, once Israel's 2 kingdoms were divided, Shishak could take the whole region piece by piece. He made his move around the year 917. That's what I'm dating it because I'm following the people who guided me in my early studies of the Bible. Particularly, I'm thinking of Bright's History of Israel. You have the text in front of you, I believe. 1 Kings 14, beginning in verse 25. Everybody got it? It happened in the 5th year of King Rehoboam that Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem. And he took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house. He took away everything. He also took away the gold shields which Solomon had made. Then King Rehoboam made bronze shields in their place. Now, according to Josephus, historian contemporary with the New Testament, Shishak took Jerusalem without a fight. The little kingdom of Judah was powerless. Rehoboam kept his throne by paying a regular tribute to the Egyptian treasury. See, the one thing Solomon really never had to do was go to war. It was all those years of peace, from 961 to 922. It was time of prosperity. Remember how it's described in the book of Kings that gold was as plentiful in the city as silver. And silver was as plentiful in the city as copper. Lots and lots of wealth. Now, in this early period of biblical history, wealth is very much respected. Even though there was a commandment, thou shalt not covet, normally, within the limits set by that commandment, you could get as wealthy as you want. Nobody saw any spiritual harm in getting wealthy. In fact, a great deal of the book of Proverbs is telling young men, work hard, get up early, don't sleep in late, get up hard, work, and you'll do quite well. You'll have a successful life, and you'll have all the blessings that God promised us, which is a family and the raising of children, prosperity. The Bible is never against this. As we'll see presently, that's not the whole story. Now, Shishak did the same to all the other little kings in the region, including the northern kingdom. See, Shishak not only invaded Judah, he also invaded Israel, the northern kingdom. By the way, you have your map on the back of those sheets. If you need to refer to that any time, just go ahead and refer to it.
Remind me again what year we're talking about, approximately.
About the invasion?
So Shishak.
The split came in 922. Shishak's invasion comes in 917. In other words, the 5th year, as the text says. Nearly the entire Levant became part of the Egyptian Empire. The 22nd dynasty is very powerful. So Egypt is restored to its traditional place as the southwestern anchor of the Fertile Crescent. Now, this arrangement did not last forever. In the 9th and 8th centuries, Syria became more prominent, Damascus, especially in the northern part of the Levant. Also, the Assyrian Empire, which took its rise in 911, would soon have its armies in the region. The 8th and 7th centuries would be the age of the Assyrians. So that's, first of all, Egypt. Second, let's consider Phoenicia. For that, you may want to consider, you can look at the back here, because I think everybody knows where Egypt is relative to the Levant, I think. But you might not know where Phoenicia is. Looks like our deacon. Is our deacon back there? Okay. Since his family's from Phoenicia, I thought I might call on him for proof of this. On your map, I believe Phoenicia is listed as Tyre, Tyre. Tyre is a city-state. We'll talk about the word Phoenicia in just a second. That's a city-state. It's not the only one of the city-states, but that's the dominant city-state of the Phoenicians at this period. Another word for Phoenician in English, anybody going to give me a variant of Phoenician in this?
Canaanite.
I'm sorry, a little.
Canaanite.
No, that's not the same thing. Canaanite's much bigger, much bigger. No, this is the Latin name.
Oh.
Punic. Punica. Okay. The Punic Wars. Well, the Punic Wars. I want to begin this section by looking once again at a text we briefly considered in our last class. 1 Kings 15:1. Now this will seem to have nothing to do with anything at first, but you'll see what I'm driving at, I think, as we go along. In the 18th year of King Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, Abijah became king over Judah. We already looked at this text. We're going to look at it more closely now. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Absalom. And he walked in all the sins of his father, which he had done before him. His father Jeroboam, right? His heart was not faithful to the Lord his God, as was the heart of his father David. We'll go down to verse 8. So Abijah slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. Then Asa, his son, reigned in his place. Now, at the bottom of your text, I've given you the dates of all these kings. Kings of Judah and Israel. Verse 11. Asa did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as did his father David. And he banished the ritual prostitutes from the land and removed all the idols that his father had made. Now Asa reigned in Judah from 913 to 873. He was Judah's first reform king. In this respect, he would be a forerunner of Hezekiah and Josiah. He was the first of those very few kings of whom it was said that he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as did his father David. That line does not appear very often in the scriptures. The king did what was right in the sight of the Lord. When Asa came to the throne as David's fourth successor, the realm was not doing very well. During the reign of Asa's grandfather, Rehoboam, Judah's financial state had been greatly weakened by incessant war with the northern kingdom. And then, of course, by that invasion from the Egyptians. The kingdom of Judah was paying heavy taxation to Egypt. Also, it had lost all the great commercial ties. 922 was a financial disaster, well, for both sides, but especially for Judah. Hardly better was the kingdom's spiritual state, for idolatry and gross immorality were rife. Rehoboam was followed on the throne by Asa's father, Abijah, that we just saw. But the latter, too, walked in all the sins of his father as he had done before him. Now, these problems seem not to have daunted young Asa, who cleaned up Israel's idolatry and immorality with such dispatch and efficiency that 1 Kings could account for it in a single verse. I just read that a few minutes ago, 15:12. Although the longer description of Asa's reign in 1 Chronicles chapters 14 through 16 describes in greater detail some of the more serious problems he encountered, Asa's single greatest headache came from, of all places, his grandmother. In general, the Bible is fairly favorable to grandmothers, on the whole. Okay. But not always. The most famous of the grandmothers in the Bible, would anybody want to suggest who might be the most famous of the grandmother? I'll be willing to take suggestions. Okay. But I would say it's Athaliah. Where do we get to Athaliah? It'll be some while before we get to Athaliah, the daughter of Jezebel. She's the one who, when her son died, sent the soldiers into the nursery to kill all the grandkids. Not your ideal grandmother. I mean, she is like a character right out of Grimm. I mean, this is this is a really bad grandma. When your grandmother tries to kill you, you get kind of depressed and you wonder where you're going to turn. So she had all the grandkids killed. She gave the order. Somebody sneaked one of the grandkids out, and he would come back and take it out on Granny. We'll get to that point. Later. Athaliah. I did not have a chapter on Athaliah in my book, Christ and His Saints. Let's look at verse 9. Do you have that there? Verse 9. In the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Israel, Asa became king over Judah. And he reigned 41 years in Jerusalem. Okay. His mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Absalom. Does anybody see a problem? We've already had that verse. Okay. The name of his mother was Maacah, the daughter of Absalom, for his father. Did everybody see the problem? His grandmother is called his mother. This is one of the Bible's many dysfunctional families. Bible, you want to know about dysfunctional families? Start with Genesis 3. Okay. The woman you gave me, First time he sees Eve, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. That's his first reaction to Eve. As soon as the pressure's on, I don't know this woman. This whole thing of a woman was your idea, not mine. Then we'll pick it up at verse 13. Also, he removed Maacah, his mother, from being queen, Megabira, because she had made an obscene image of Asherah. That's the Asherah is a female divinity. And Asa cut down her obscene image and burned it by the brook Kidron. Now, let me go through these verses a little bit with you. These are not the verses I think that necessarily jump out at you right away in the Bible. But you like verses or say something like, God so loved the world. I mean, those are your verses, right? Had Asa's accession to the throne followed proper traditional policy on the point, this grandmother, known to history as Maacah the Younger, would have retired to spend her remaining days rocking and knitting in some quiet corner of the palace, occasionally stopping to dandle a grandchild or take some cookies from the oven. In other words, when her son was no longer king, she was no longer queen mother. Her role as queen mother, or Gavira, would have been assumed by Asa's own mother. In fact, we do not know who Asa's mother was, because the old lady had refused to step down. She stayed on. Evidently, on the day that Asa took the throne, no one in the realm was sufficiently powerful to make her step down, not even the new king. The lady had that kind of authority, that kind of weight. Maacah doubtless enjoyed occupying was a very powerful position in the ancient courts. Since royal sons were hardly disposed to decline reasonable requests from their mothers, it was no small advantage for other members of the court to cultivate the favor of the Gavira. In other words, that was a powerful position. The person who had that position could make lots of friends, create lots of IOUs. This is a powerful person in the court. Her special place in the realm is further indicated by the fact that the books of Kings normally lists the names of the mothers of the kings of Judah. But in the case of Asa, his grandmother is called his mother. Now I take this case of Maacah as a window into a serious religious problem with both Israelite kingdoms. The religious compromises that arose from their political and mercantile involvement with their neighbors, especially Phoenicia. Now, Asa is correct. The Phoenicians are, in fact, just one branch of the Canaanites, the seagoing side of the Canaanites. I want to say some things about Canaanite and Phoenician religion at this point. Two words, two names you want to hang on to. The first is, well, I'll just give you the Hebrew sound, Melech, M-E-L-E-K, Melech. Okay? Exactly the same word as the Canaanite Moloch, or the Ammonite Milcah. Melech means king. The other word is Baal, B-A-A-L, Baal, which means Lord, king and Lord. Lots of gods had that name. There are all kinds of Baals. It's definitely plural, Baalim, all kinds of Baals. The Baal of this, the Baal of that, the Baal of this place, the Baal of that place, and so forth. The Baal we're dealing with in the case of the Phoenicians is called Melkart, which literally means king of the city. King of the city, Melkart, king of the city. The dynastic god, supreme protector of the city-state. He's also known as Baal Shur, literally Baal of Tyre, but also literally Baal of the rock. I don't want to go into these derivations for you. Melkart, or the Latin Melicartus, was a titular god of the Venetian city-state of Tyre and a major deity of the Phoenician, the Punic pantheons. Often entitled Baal Shur, the Lord of Tyre, he was also king of the underworld, protector of the universe. His consort was Astarte. Remember that? Maacah had put up a statue to Astarte. As Tyrian Phoenician trade and settlement expanded, Melkart became venerated in the Phoenician, the Punic cultures across the entire Mediterranean. This was a god worshipped by Dido, which brings us all the way to Latin literature. Dido of Carthage, okay, who was a Phoenician princess. Every place the Phoenicians settled, they took these gods with them. These gods they take on characteristics of the other neighboring pantheons, particularly Greece. During the high point of Phoenician civilization, between 1000 and 500, Melkart was associated with other pantheons and venerated accordingly. Most notably, he would later be identified with Heracles, known in Latin literature as Hercules, since at least the 6th century. The other form of it in Canaanite literature is Moloch. I think probably this is sufficiently known, so I think I can ask the question because I suspect there are several of you would know. What is the sacrifice for which Moloch is best known? Children. Children. The sacrifice of children. Now, the sacrifice of children comes from originally from agricultural culture, farming. It's a way of fertilizing the land. Yes, sir.
Okay. What was the name of the god of Tyre?
Melkart.
How do I spell that?
All right. I'm gonna take a wild guess.
Oh, okay.
Let's try. This will do it. Melkart.
And Moloch was a name for Melkart?
Moloch. The root is Melech, which means king. So Moloch simply means king. Melkart is king of the city. I just love those tablets. He's writing away here on something electronic. He's got this, and he's immediately going. He's hooked up to the Library of Congress. He goes right there. On the way between here and the Library of Congress, it's inspected by the FBI, the CIA, Homeland Security, especially because your association with Touchstone. Now, if you have questions like that, ask me. Thank you for asking me that. Any other questions so far? Yes, the sacrifice of children. Now, but suppose your economy moves from agrarian to mercantile. Yes, ma'am.
How come they didn't kill animals rather than children?
That's another question. That's
sorry.
a philosophical.
Like a farmer.
That's a philosophical question. They did kill animals,
Oh, okay.
but some of the gods that you really get on the side of, they up the price a bit.
Oh, okay.
When you shift from an agrarian economy to a mercantile economy, you switch from an agrarian society, agrarian social structure, to a commercial social structure. You simply carry the god over with you. So the sacrifice of children is for better profits. Economics. Okay? The current Secretary of the Treasury, anybody know who I'm talking about? That very homely lady with the steel gray hair. She put her finger on it. She says we must keep abortion legal and safe for the sake of the economy. This is an economics concern. With me? He came right out and said it. No attempt to disguise it at all. Okay. We must kill these children for the sake of our economy. Because if women have to stay around and raise these babies, it's going to hurt the workplace. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm forgetting his name, but the fellow who ran as a Democrat for governor in Virginia last time. Who was his name? No. Anyway, he also made the statement that that we had to keep abortion in Virginia for this sake because it was best for business.
Best for business. Now I've heard over the last 2 weeks, I've heard that on TV from various members of a certain political party. I've heard that repeatedly from several across the entire sweep of the country. Abortion is absolutely essential to the economy. Let me come back to where I was. Now, the kingdom of Tyre was the mercantile power of this region. The fiscal well-being of each Israelite kingdom depended on the good standing with Phoenicia. If you want to know what the biblical prophets thought about this, I send you to Mount Carmel and a famous encounter with one biblical prophet against a whole bunch of priests of Baal. All those guys are baby killers. And remember how Big E took them all on? That was Elijah, by the way. His friends called him Big E. Let's come back to Maacah. The case of Maacah demonstrates an especially shrewd Gavira who can manage to maintain her position in court even after the death of her son. Notice the statue that's erected, the idol that's erected, is Astarte, the consort of this god. Maacah, a woman so powerful, after all, was able to put quite a number of people in her debt over the years. Influential and well-placed individuals in whom she could rely later on to keep her in power. So when her grandson takes over the throne, Asa, he's powerless to do anything about it. He's just a young man, just moving into this position. And he has to play himself right just so he survives. All kinds of powerful people. The Bible's singular example of the power of such a person would come later on in Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, who actually usurped the realm itself between the years 842 and 837. Athaliah. I did write something on Athaliah. It was published in Touchstone some years ago. If you have your Touchstone subscription, you know how to go online with the Touchstone subscription, don't you? Everybody know how to do that. You simply go on the web page, go up and click on your subscription, and that'll open up all the files for you. You'll be able to read everything that every writer has ever written on Touchstone. But the one you really want to read is me. Well, you might. I mean, there's an outside possibility you might want to read something that I've written. So Maacah managed to hold on to her privileged position at court after the accession of Asa. She had been around for quite a while and was well acquainted with the ways of power. She was named after her grandmother, Maacah the Elder, who was from the kingdom of Geshur. Geshur, by the way, is the region, apparently the region up in the Golan Heights. Everybody know where I'm talking about, the Golan Heights? Okay. It's very important you know where the Golan Heights are. Okay, they're in Syria, but can I say that safely? You said, can I say that safely? They're in Syria?
Yeah.
Okay. I think they're in Syria, but
The Syrians think they're in Syria.
the Syrians think they're in Syria. But most of you do not remember, I think probably almost none of you remember the 67 war. Yeah, you remember the 67 war. I was living in Italy at the time with the 67 war, the famous 5-day war, when Israel went to war with every single country that surrounded it, and across the entire North Africa. And I remember the joke going around in Italy at the time was that the Italian Parliament had met and had surrendered just in case. Okay. We joked a lot. We joked a lot over there. Okay. She was from the kingdom of Geshur. She was a Geshurite princess. Did I put down? Yes, I did put it down. 2 Samuel chapter 3, beginning verse 2. This goes back a bit. The sons born to David in Hebron, and his firstborn was Ammon of Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess. His second was Heliab of Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And the third was Absalom, the son of Maacah, that's Maacah the elder, the daughter of Talmai, the king of Geshur. Geshur is up in the Golan Heights. Now this younger Maacah, the daughter of Absalom, was named for her grandmother. She was still a child during the 3 years that she spent with her father in his exile at Geshur. In 2 Samuel 13, verse 38. And Absalom fled and went to Geshur and was there 3 years. That's a review detail. Doubtless it was at Geshur as a child that she first learned the ways of idolatry. Maacah was most certainly an idolatress. Raised in the easygoing atmosphere of her uncle Solomon's court after the death of her own father, she also learned the lessons of idolatry, along with the habits of political power. Given in marriage to her cousin Rehoboam, who would eventually succeed Solomon on the throne, Maacah knew that someday, when her son Abijah became king, she would become the Gebirah, the queen mother. She longed for that day. Alas, when that day came, it did not last very long, for Abijah reigned only 3 years. No matter, for the determined Maacah somehow found the means to stay in power for a little longer. Now, except for her idolatry, Asa might have just left her in place for good. But he realized if he's going to bring the people back to the worship of the true God, Grandma had to go. You know, it's a hard thing when a guy reaches that. You know, Granny has to go. It's a hard decision. As the young king's position became stronger, and he was in a reforming mood, Grandma stood in the way of his reforms. So he deposed his own grandmother. All that meant was, she doesn't get to be Gebirah anymore. That's all. She doesn't. He says he calls her in one day, or he visits her one day, and says, "You know, Granny, you need to retire. I'm here. This is a little book I'm giving you. It's full of cookie recipes. And here's a sewing kit. Okay. And here's a couple of grandchildren to dandle on your knee." The story of Maacah illustrates an ongoing problem with both the Israelite monarchies. The intermarriage with other royal families of the neighboring region. These wives were pagans, and they raised their children under the influence of foreign divinities. It was a serious compromise. This was especially the case with respect to Phoenicia. I don't want to start that too soon, because where it's going to be really obvious is in the 8th century. But I'll have to take something in the very next class. I plan to take the prophets and the economy, and that'll start in the 9th century with the rise of Elijah, and we'll have a lot to say about Elijah, and particularly the famous story of Nabal's vineyard. Remember the story of the vineyard, and how the royal family steals the vineyard. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. Let me make some remarks about the Book of Kings. I probably won't be able to finish it because the children will be coming in. After the division of the two kingdoms, we detect certain refrains until the end of the Book of Kings. This is the third part of this morning's lecture. First, the kings of Judah are individually assessed by whether or not they measured up to the standards set by David. Whereas the kings of Israel are all condemned because they all followed the example of Jeroboam I. Each in his own way, both men become exemplars. It looks like the sweet people are out of class. Yeah, the first fruits of our, yeah, they're here. Okay. I'll have this class continues next Sunday, by the way. Joseph is not going to be able to teach next Sunday, so I'll be taking that class. The last Sunday of the month, it's too close to Thanksgiving. It's too close to Thanksgiving. Is that
no Sunday school on there.
Yeah. By the way, I loved what you said about Chrysostom this morning. On that, There's a pastor. I mean, there is a pastor. I won't pursue that any further. Glory to the Father, to the Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and to the ages of ages. Amen.